It is 4:17 in the morning, and it is time to head out to Big Bend. Got the coffee brewing, and got all the gear laid out and ready to go. Been in the car for 7.5 hours. We are about 3 hours away. The landscape has definitely changed. It's becoming a little rockier, definitely drier, lots of cactus, and it's pretty cool. It's kind of like being somewhere completely different than what I'm used to in Texas. That's Barry. Once we get to the park, we're going to check in, get our permits, get our campsites booked, and start to make our way to Homer Wilson Ranch to Cache Water. This will be where we end our first day of hiking so that we can refill and get some water for the rest of our trip. So we just made it to the ranger station at Panther Junction. We got our backcountry permits. We got the campsite that we wanted on the south rim, so we're pretty happy about that. Right now we're gonna go cache water at Homer Wilson, and then after that we'll have to drive back around, and we're going to take some off-road trails to the trailhead. So we made it to Homer Wilson Ranch. We're gonna grab the water out of the Jeep and take it to the box. Yeah.
The Dodson comes around that, and then we come up and through here.
Right now we are on an off-road trail making our way to the trailhead and our campsite for the night. This is not recommended unless you have a 4x4 high clearance vehicle. As you can see, it's a bit bumpy, but it's kind of fun. Taking our first steps on the Outer Mountain Loop. We got in last night and we were kind of losing sunlight, so we were in a hurry to set up camp. And yeah, we got all set up. I met somebody at the trailhead. His name was also Greg, so that was pretty cool. Best name. And he was just wrapping up the same hike, so we got some good information on water sources and stuff like that. And he was also a pretty nice fella, so nice to meet him. This is our first real break, I would say. We've done about a little over 3 miles in about an hour and a half, so not a super quick pace, but there's a lot of ups and downs and some pretty rocky terrain. Makes it a little tricky. You got to watch where you're stepping. But one of the things that I'm noticing out here is how quiet it is. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, I imagined it would be quiet, but I didn't realize it would be this quiet. It's probably the most silence I've ever heard in my entire life. So just gonna sit here and enjoy it for a little bit. And yes, I said the most silence I've ever heard. I'm aware that that makes absolutely zero sense. So right now we're looking at the south rim, and that's where we'll be tomorrow night. But we got some desert hiking to do first. Pretty close to halfway through with day one. We just arrived at Fresno Creek, which is flowing water, which is always a good sign. We were down, or I was down to about half a liter. So ended up drinking about a little over 2 liters on the way here. It's pretty moderate with the temperature right now. Obviously if it was warmer, I would have been drinking more. But for this temperature, it seems like around 2 liters can get you here if Fresno's running. Just a warning though, it's not always running. So if you're gonna rely on it, you need to make sure that you get some information from something like Big Ben chat forum or from the Rangers. So I'm gonna eat some lunch and filter some water.
So those little butterflies.
What about them?
There's a bunch of butterflies flying around.
Alright, so here's a better shot of the south rim. Our campsite. We're in the southeast corner, so I believe somewhere like here we're going to be camping ish, maybe a little bit further to the left, but that thing's pretty awesome. So a good view of Elephant Tusk just came into sight. Pretty much took these switchbacks up. Down there you can see Fresno Creek where we stopped for lunch. Definitely out of breath. I'm gonna stop, but just keep going. So we made it to our campsite. We didn't go all the way to Homer Wilson Ranch. We are actually camping about maybe a half a mile away, and then we're going to pick up our water in the morning, eat some breakfast, and then head on up into the mountains. If you watched my gear list, you would see that my shelter was a Z-Pax tarp. Well, we got here to the trailhead and we were spending our first night, and the first thing I saw when I was getting out my sleeping stuff was a black widow spider. Still a little sketchy about things like that, so I opted to use my Z-Pax tent instead. It adds about 14 ounces or so, but it still felt pretty good to carry. Good morning. We didn't stay at camp very long this morning. We packed up while it was still a little dark out and headed out to Homer Wilson Ranch, which is where we are now. It's probably a little bit less than a mile, so we got here pretty quick. We went and picked up our water that we cached. We can talk about the hike yesterday. We did 11 miles and it was pretty brutal. The trail is not very well maintained. There's a lot of rocks, loose gravel, a lot of meandering ups and downs. And the sun was relentless. It basically beat down on us for the whole 11 miles. There was a few spots where we could find some shade, and we definitely took advantage of that when we had the opportunity. But we were glad when it was over, and also glad that today we'll be getting a little more shade as we hike up into the Chisos Mountains. So we're gonna have some breakfast and load up our water, and then we're gonna hit the trail. gotten a lot thicker with trees. There's some autumn leaves that we passed. We're about to climb that. So there's gonna be a lot of huffing and puffing, and it's gonna feel good once we get to the top. Until then, it's probably gonna hurt pretty bad. Okay, so we're stopping for lunch. We are getting our ass kicked by this mountain, but that's a bit of a reward that we get to look down at where we came from. So I don't know if you can see, but way down there in the middle is Chisos Mountain. We camped on the other side of that, and we've been slowly marching our way up the foothills, and it's not going to be over anytime soon, but at least we'll have some food and a little bit of rest. All right, so we made it to the junction of the Blue Creek Trail and the South Rim Trail. So we're going to be heading up some more elevation, and we got about 3.5 hours of daylight left. So I think as long as we can average at least a mile an hour, we should be just fine. Well, we're getting pretty close. Again, you can see Chisos Mountain in the background. It's getting smaller and smaller. And highest points of the South Rim are not looking too intimidating anymore. This was our first big view here. So we made it to the campsite for our second night, which is campsite Southeast 2 on the South Rim, which is at the very top of the Chisos Mountains. Well, technically you could go up Emery Peak, which is a little bit higher, but the best views are on the South Rim. So we've been soaking in some pretty amazing views. We got our camp all set up. We're gonna have our dinner and probably head over to a scenic overlook for a bit, and we probably have about 45 minutes of daylight left. And after that, probably gonna go to sleep because we worked our butts off today. We're both super tired. It's time to hit the hay, get some rest, and get up tomorrow morning and do our easiest day yet. Basically, we just have to go down the Chisos Mountain via the Juniper Canyon Trail, where we will meet back up with the Juniper Trailhead where we are parked. We got up pretty early and got headed out around 7:30, and now we are taking in the sunrise from the top of the South Rim. So enjoy the views. So down there is where we came from. That's the Dodson. You probably can't see it through the video, but I can see a little bit of glinting light off what might be the Jeep. Looks like we got some fall colors coming up in the canyon. Some nice autumn leaves up here. Battery's going out, so hopefully we can get past them before that happens. Don't worry, I have another battery. See, there you can kind of get a look at it. So far, this part of the hike has been not too bad. Definitely the easiest so far. But not too long, we'll be going down some pretty rocky switchbacks. So it's going to get a little harder. I actually saw a decent amount of people so far. On the Dodson, we didn't see anybody, which is not unusual. So that was about 11 miles that we didn't see anybody. So we just dropped down into the canyon, and I believe these might be the Taneja pools. Supposedly there's pretty much always water here, but it's standing. You could get to it if you really needed to, but we're gonna wait and filter water at Upper Juniper Springs, where the water is flowing and a little easier to get to. So now we're gonna head on to the Juniper Canyon Trail, and that'll take us all the way to the Jeep. This is hiking down the Juniper Canyon Trail, or yeah, Juniper Canyon Trail. We're on switchbacks right now, and Barry's mad. That's where we just came down, and looks like we still have a little ways to go before we get to some water. So that up there is the boot, because it looks like a boot. So just as we were getting back to the Jeep, it started raining. We managed to stay dry, but it was pretty fortunate for us that the rain didn't start until the very end of our hike. For the most part, the weather was really great. Let's do a little bit of post-trail analysis. First, I want to talk about my gear. What gear did I like? What gear didn't I like? What I would have done differently, etc. As far as the weather and the temperatures went, everything worked out really well. I was really happy with my layering system. There was definitely extra layers that I could wear at night and in the morning, and it was pretty convenient and kept me warm. My tent held up very nicely. At the very first site that we were at the trailhead, there was really hard ground and couldn't put any stakes in, so I had to use rocks to set my tent up. It was okay. My tent was a little saggy, and I probably could have done a better job, but the air was really still and the weather was really nice, so I really wasn't that concerned about it. Later on though, we did get some really high wind when we were up on the south rim, probably up to 20 or 30 mile per hour gusts. Luckily, the ground up there was soft enough that I could stake out, and I have to say my duplex held up very, very well, and I was very happy with it. I managed to set up so that the side where I staked out the vestibule was taking the wind, and then on the other side I was able to leave the vestibule open so I could just have the mesh and get fresh air and also reduce the chance of condensation in my tent. And it really wasn't too bad. My tent didn't flap too much. I felt pretty secure. I wasn't really worried about my tent coming down or anything like that. So yeah, thumbs up to the Z-Packs duplex, did a great job. If I had used the tarp that I was intending to use, it would have been okay, I think. I think I would have just staked it so that the wind was coming up the back side of the tarp. There wasn't any rain or anything like that, so really I would have just used the tarp as a windbreaker. My backpack, the Mountain Laurel Designs Prophet, held up really well. I was really happy with the size, the durability. I like that it's a little bit thicker DCF than some of the other bags that I've seen. But one thing that I'm considering changing is the hip belt. It didn't really seem to do much. There was a point when I was carrying 7 liters of water when we were coming out of Homer Wilson Ranch, and I cinched the hip belt really tight, hoping that it would take a little bit of the load off my shoulders. But despite the fact that my pack was very compact and probably should transfer some of the weight to the hips when the hip belt's on, it didn't really feel that different to me. The only thing that I could really notice was that it maybe stopped a little bit of the swaying, and if I had to bend over or something like that, it kind of just held my backpack in place. I think that I might actually take a pair of scissors and just cut the hip belts off. Some frameless packs come with detachable hip belts, but these ones are sewed in. So yeah, I'm really thinking about just taking them off because I don't really think they did much for me, and I can't really imagine carrying anything heavier than that when I had 7 liters of water, and at that point I probably still had 5 or 6 pounds of food plus my base weight. So, you know, you're looking at probably 30 pounds or so. And I pretty much never want to carry any more than that in this bag. So don't think I need the hip belt. Another thing that I will do differently next time if I do a hiking vlog like this is I want to use my Canon camera more, the G7X. I used it for some of the shots and those ones came out really good, but I also used my cell phone a lot of the time, mainly because I had a little bit of issue with the shoulder pocket that I was keeping my camera in. It was kind of goofy to like get it in and out. It was kind of a pain in the butt, and when you're like huffing and puffing climbing a mountain, I finally just got tired of it and I used my phone instead. Well, turns out I'm a little bit disappointed with the phone footage, and I wish that I had just, you know, sucked it up and used the Canon. So in order to fix this for next time, I'm going to get rid of the shoulder pocket because it's just too small, and since I'm gonna cut the hip belt off my pack, I think it might be time for a fanny pack. I know you might be thinking, fanny pack? That's super dorky, but really, come on, who cares? We don't look super cool when we're out on the trail anyways. I mean, you might, but I don't know, I never feel like I do. So I want something functional, and that's the main thing that I'm looking for. A fanny pack would be perfect because I could keep my phone in it, I could keep my camera in it, I could keep my tripod in it, and I could keep snacks in it, and I would pretty much never ever have to stop unless you know, I want to take my bag off to rest. This trip I was finding I would have to take my bag off a lot to get at snacks or get at things for my camera or whatever, and I just really don't want to have to do that. Towards the end I realized I could just attach my tripod to my trekking pole, and that ended up working out really well, and it was kind of nice because I didn't have to fumble around with the tripod. It was pretty much always there. I could take it off if I wanted to use it, but if I didn't want to, I could just attach the camera and film with that. Lessons were learned. I think next time, if I make a video like this, it's gonna be even better. So anyways, thank you for watching. I know that most of you are here to see poker vlogs, and this is completely different from that. But as I've explained in my other video, I wanna do some other stuff, and I'm not gonna stop doing poker vlogs. I'm gonna continue to probably do the majority of my videos as poker vlogs, but here and there, I'm gonna do a little sprinkling of hiking and climbing and things like that. But don't worry, if you're here for the poker, it should be easy enough to avoid those videos if you have no interest. But if you do like outdoorsy stuff and you want to see more of it, then make sure you keep updated with my channel, subscribe, do the notification thing, do all the things that you got to do to make sure that you can see the next few videos. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram. You can find my Instagram and Twitter information down in the description of this video. Coming up next, we'll do a poker vlog, I promise. Okay? See you later.